Oh, are there any citizens' comments? Nope. Okay. And then we jump right into the agenda here.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 18th.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Sorry. I made the motion.
I second.
I voted yes.
Moving on.
All right. Tom, director's report.
So that, we can skip that. That shouldn't
Okay.
have been in there. We can keep moving, so that one's easy.
All right. We're out of the game.
So I think the first thing we want to go to is as the health insurance update.
Sure.
So, yes, since we've last talked as a committee, we had committed to working with WEA, and in early June, WEA had announced that they are going to exit the health insurance market by January 1st. So the decision we had in front of us was, do we move forward with WEA for 6 months, or do we reconsider our options? So Megan Zimmerman is here to join us. Megan, again, is our broker. She comes from the Marsh McLennan Agency, and they guide a number of organizations in making healthcare decisions such as this one here. So I've asked her to join us tonight here. Just kind of, she's got a very, very brief presentation here, so she'll explain our rationale for the decisions we made here and where do we go from here. Megan.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, hit that button there. All right, there you go.
As Tom mentioned, I'm here just to provide a recap of what has transpired from the decision-making on the health insurance and the reasons why, and then also to discuss future planning around the health insurance and some options that we have proposed. So first, I just wanted to go through the 7/1/2022 renewal recap. Initially, Mukwonago Area School District received a 9.9% rate cap offer from Anthem. We decided to go out to market and look at some alternatives. And those alternatives were the fully insured alternatives as well as self-funded alternatives. The most competitive offer that we received came in from WEA Trust with 5% above the current rates and a second-year rate cap of 8.5%. And I just want to note that this was the only cost-competitive insurance offer for fully insured options. We presented this option along with the self-funded options, and the decision was, at that time, because of some of the financial risk around self-funding, that wasn't at the kind of expected risk, but more of your kind of max liability and always thinking worst-case scenario. The decision was made to stay fully insured this year and then ultimately accept the offer from WEA Trust. Well, on June 1st, a company that has been offering or a not-for-profit health insurance for over 50 years made the sudden decision that they were going to exit the market of offering group health insurance coverage on 1/1/23. They're still going to offer retirement as well as some ancillary short-term type of lines of coverage. However, the health insurance and their group health plans will cease on 12/31/2022. So with that offer then became, do you go back to the Anthem offer? Do you stay with WEA in that offer for 6 months and then change the plan year to a 1/1 renewal date and look at alternatives at that time? But really the concern came in of the lack of data that was not going to be available with essentially your health insurance provider folding coverage. Also member experience concerns on just the care coordination and so forth and having customer service. So based on those two decision points, Mukwonago Area School District decided to take the renewal with Anthem. And I want to just briefly touch on also the renewal with Anthem, because at 9.9, that certainly is not what we wanted for the district for this year. Certainly understanding, some of the financial challenges and certainly just a high renewal. But Anthem was not willing to negotiate after multiple attempts. We even mentioned about possibly staying with WEA, and they basically, because of the loss ratio, which at the time is over 115%, There's some very high-cost claim projections for a few large claimants, as well as, quite frankly, there weren't alternatives in the market for fully insured. So essentially, they knew, just to be blunt, there was a little bit of, they had us kind of trapped, so to speak, on fully insured alternatives. So that's what led to the decision to ultimately take the renewal with Anthem at that 9.9%. But there still is then, where do we go from here? And we've discussed and talked about self-funded is the path forward to really have cost containment when you are looking at controlling your healthcare costs. So there's kind of two plans and paths that we can take here. I call path A is staying with Anthem until the first of the year. And we can kind of prior to that go out and look at self-funded alternatives with an independent TPA and network, which is the things that we also evaluated for this year's renewal. Look through that option of offering the free primary care through that independent provider, which could be through the near-site, on-site clinic concept. Also offering through those direct contracts, free specialty care to your members, but again, through the direct contracted rate, so you know exactly that cost when you're offering that incentive to those plan members. The excellent customer service, member navigation to get the members on the plan to feel comfortable with the consumerism experience that is going to be needed to keep healthcare affordable and accessible. And then the ability, when you are self-funded, to choose your own pharmacy benefit or PBM manager. And with that, you have that opportunity to really save on your prescriptions, where you don't have those same options when you're fully insured. So you're looking at savings just on the pharmacy of 20 to 40% from your current cost, because they're going through different procurement options that you cannot do when you're fully insured. So one of the ways to incentivize members from being involved in their healthcare consumerism with the pharmacy program is offering free specialty medications. And then with these type of programs, we typically see those medical savings anywhere from 5 to 15% from current costs. So that is path A, and is an option to evaluate then for keeping a short plan year of fully insured right now, but putting in that self-funded plan at the beginning of the year and having that coincide with a calendar year. Plan B is to take the same options that we outlined, but implement that plan then for July 1st of 2023. So this really lays out then the health plan timeline, and this is very high level. And I just want to also highlight, this does not impact your members when we're doing this evaluation and looking at making these decisions and looking at these alternatives. So, with Plan A, there's kind of those key dates you can see in September, where we would start looking at some of those preliminary options. Stop loss is going to be one of the biggest components when you're looking at moving self-funded, because that's where we're really looking at, kind of that reinsurance, so kind of your worst case scenario and identifying your expected versus your max costs. But really by early November, with meetings and having this information, I would say that you would have that data and the financials to make that decision if you feel comfortable moving to a self-insured plan for 1/1/23. Certainly, education with employees and kind of doing a plan reset would have to take place if we were going to opt for a short plan year. Otherwise, again, the Plan B option of evaluating the self-funded plan then is outlined, which typically coincides with the typical times and dates, with your 7/1 renewal. And I just want to highlight, this is the team that is dedicated to the Mukwonago Area School District. So I also partner with Sarah Hamas, who's an independent advisor and consultant, and has, together we've had a lot of success with what we like to call the disruptor success stories. And these are all school districts and employers that have essentially bent the cost curve and controlled healthcare costs. And all of this has been achieved with all of these respective organizations through that blueprint that I kind of walked through with the Plan A and Plan B. And we look forward to having Mukwonago be part of the Disruptor success stories, because it is possible, and we're going to work hard to get you there. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
So the difference really between Plan A and B is when we start those savings.
The dates, correct, is looking at when you're comfortable making that transition.
And estimates on our clinic, if we,
In terms of cost,
well, no, can we be ready by,
I think if we took the direction that we'd like to open a health clinic, like in the next 30 days by the July meeting, then I think it's feasible. Kurt, Andy, do you want to weigh in on that? Do you think it's feasible that we could have a health clinic ready to go on January 1st?
Yeah, if the decision is to proceed and it's at the high school, we've already done some preliminary planning on it. I think January 1st is doable. Yet, the supply chain thing we were just talking about before the meeting is a challenge, but some of the big pieces that you're seeing supply chain, I don't think is going to affect us on here. Doors is one thing, but we have so few amount of doors, we can figure out a plan B. We don't have generator or some of those other big, electrical panels. That's not an issue with this build out if we stick with the high school concept. So yeah, I think it's feasible to hit a January 1st date.
Do we have to build a clinic, or what is the benefit of doing that? Does it save us, or why are we doing that anyway?
No, I'll take this one if I could here, Megan. So the clinic, when you use a traditional healthcare provider, and there are some in town, when you go to them, there may not be an inherent making referrals is something that's very critical and important to the health of their business. No pun intended there, but it is important to their financial health that while they are going to give you advice, they're going to give you a health opinion. They're also going to keep their own interests in the forefront. So unnecessary referrals, getting MRIs done that may not be needed, getting an MRI referral to somebody whose MRI is $4,000 when you could get it for $600. When you have independent primary care that isn't attached to a health system that has no financial incentive to create referrals, is when you can truly get true health primary care that's unbiased in any way, shape, or form. It's all about you. So
effectively, we're buying our own doctor, and he has to have a place to work.
Yes. So and we talked about this quite a bit the last time, Megan. You visited us when you had Sarah, and that was an excellent presentation. That I forget who asked Sarah, why aren't you running for governor? Because her presentation and her opinions on this were right on, and we agreed. So, I mean, Vito, I know you were at that meeting. But yeah, the whole key to effective self-insurance is to detach yourself from a health system that may not have your best interest in mind, and get primary care from a system that is all about you.
So we would save money in the sense of people wouldn't be doing unnecessary procedures or things.
Sure, the referrals, I mean, of course they would occur, but they would be truly medically necessary if the opinion of the medical, personnel who's doing the primary care is, there will be referrals, but nothing. We would remove ourselves from the potential that unnecessary referrals are taking place.
Is this a pediatric doctor as well, where teachers are now bringing their children there? Because I find it very hard to get away from, and I'm all for this, by the way, and I very much support that. But I just find it hard that there's going to be people that are going to pull away from their current doctor
Sure.
or pediatrician just because it's already scheduled. It's in this little nice app.
Sure, no, absolutely.
Bill me here.
That's understood. No, that's understood. So there would still be employee choice in this. So in the concept that we have laid out is that the primary care clinic, wherever that might be, at Mukwonago High School or elsewhere, as a part of the plan, we would purchase that, and it would be district paid for. So anytime that you go there, it's free. Okay. Now, obviously, if you're bleeding and you need stitches, they don't do triage there. So I mean, it has its limitations. But when you need, a checkup for a number of different things, that would be there, and it would be free.
Okay.
Now, if you wanted to keep your primary care provider, you could do that, but there's going to be a cost for that.
Okay.
So You have options at the end of the day, and there's a free option, and then there's an option that you could pay for.
That's what I was wondering, what the incentive was to get people. I don't know.
Right.
If it was just the same thing, I'm like, I would just stay where I was going.
So likewise, and I'll point to our neighbors to the east, the Muskego, who Sarah had been an advisor for here or consultant not too long ago. They have an on-site clinic at Muskego High School, and they've had tremendous success with that concept, where people will utilize that so that they can ultimately not incur medical costs, because it's all paid for. It's all free when they go there.
Can you set up a field trip there?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we actually, Kurt and Andy and I, we went there about 3 months ago. I don't know actually if that is.
If you set that up, I would be interested in going and seeing what it looks like.
Yeah.
Calling dibs because only a few of us get to go.
Yeah. They administer, I don't know if it was like 70 or 200 non-narcotic medications. They buy them in bulk. So rather than, a traditional healthcare plan is buying those for $40 a prescription, we buy those in bulk for way cheaper and just give them out for free. You're basically giving as many reasons to your employees and their spouses and dependents to go there for free. I mean, if you need a physical for your child to play sports every 2 years, you could go get it for free, or you could pay $220 to a regular doctor. Fine, but that doctor's visit doesn't cost $220.
Right.
But that's what they charge you when you go to a traditional healthcare provider. Megan, how am I doing? Am I doing okay?
Great. I would also add, there's often the trepidation from a lot of members of, I'm going to just stay with my own doctor, and why would I go there? But once they experience it, once they have that member, another member story that's shared, and also those providers are there to work for your members and their health. So they aren't on a time schedule where we only get 15 minutes, and what we can accomplish in that 15 minutes is all that we're going to discuss. And then that kind of network that we build around it, where you still have an open, broad network to choice. So I just want to make sure everyone understands this isn't limiting choice, but all of those additional tier 1 options, which are free to the members because they're direct contracts that we know the rates on and are substantially cheaper and more cost effective, and same quality access than if you were going to go through your health plan. They help the members navigate and refer them. So as Tom mentioned, that $500, $600 MRI versus going for that $4,000 MRI, that's not your insurance company. I mean, you have a true provider that's navigating and steering you through that and educating you and the members on the plan. So they also work to help you navigate through the healthcare system as well. And as kind of strange as that may sound, I mean, we don't have the prices in front of us typically and understand those costs. So that is what happens then when people get the bills on the back end and have no idea that referral down the hallway for some routine lab work costs $1,000 when it really can cost at these clinics $0 to nothing for members, and as pennies on the dollar.
I think part of the thing that we're shooting for here is that we can all agree, I don't think anybody will disagree, that our healthcare system in general is broken.
Totally. Yeah.
So given that we just, I don't know about everybody else, but I expect a little bit of clunkiness. I expect there to be some hiccups and some hurdles to get over, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is our starting somewhere. Muskego's kind of paved the way a little bit, showed us that it's feasible. Mm-hmm. It seems to make sense for them. It seems to make sense for a couple other people. It's I'd rather be on the forefront of it and be part of the group setting the pace.
Yeah, I just didn't know what the benefits were, or if we were going to build this clinic and then no one was going to go, and then we're like, well, that was a waste of money. I just would hate.
There's certainly that risk.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I mean, you talked me into it, but I just didn't know what the pros were.
I'm curious about what Steve had to say about the placement of
Sure.
it. If that's, I think I could go either way on that. It's like I feel like it would be nice to have it convenient and there, but I can see people being worried about
Well, I get it.
having it right there.
My wife works at Northwestern Mutual. There's on-site health care at their downtown facilities, and she was not comfortable going, so I hear about it from my spouse. So I get the apprehension when somebody has it. you know, at that same time, I'm watching there's clinics at in Greendale School District. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, thank you. There's a clinic at Muskego High School, as I said, Oak Creek Franklin School District. There's a number of school districts that have this concept, and while it may not work for everyone, it can work for the greater majority so that the health plan is something that the people appreciate, they like, and you know, it's convenient and it works.
How long has your wife had that opportunity?
Oh, at least 5 years.
She's still not comfortable with it, even after hearing all the stories. I'd be curious.
You know,
Is
she's, yeah,
she
and I get it.
to it over time, or is it something that people go initially, but as the trickle starts to happen, that they get used to it and it becomes.
You know, so she's
second nature?
working from home now, and that's just her new motto. So she doesn't go downtown but twice a year, anyway. So it's
Sure.
it's a little different. I hope she's okay me sharing her story here. Right? I love you, babe. So, but I get that when people are apprehensive about that. That's not lost on me. I get that, you know, and giving the rationale to Steve when he asked that, the central location of it, it's, you know, with the exception of Big Bend Elementary and maybe Eagleville, I mean, most of our employees from Clarendon, the middle school, the high school, Rolling Hills section, in Prairie View, they can get there in 8 minutes or less. That's something that you could go there and get your prescriptions or get your appointment done. I mean, there are virtual options as well. So rather than driving in face to face wherever you are, just get on your phone and that same provider, correct, am I right on that, Megan, that they can do a virtual appointment without having to physically go to Mukwonago High School. So there's alternatives to that. But the central location, it's the only building that could have space in theory. You know, we could find an alternative home for the print media center. But yeah, I'm still open to the conversation of if we need to think outside the box to find a better way to do this. Do we need to perhaps survey our employees first to see what their comfort level is and let that drive this? I'm open to other ways to making this decision rather than just Tom, what's your recommendation? There might be a better idea out there.
I like the idea of a survey to see if there's a preference and what they would do for if it was in the high school, if that would kind of get them to not be as excited about it.
Sure.
But you
The
said
idea-
in order,
Go ahead.
in order to make the January, we'd need to make that call at the next board meeting in July.
Yeah.
Just wanna,
Yeah, I mean, that does get a little more complicated because then we'd have to go out and find space. We have to make sure that the space is adequate, affordable, zoned correctly. It's never as easy as it sounds.
Is that what we were looking for? Roundabout?
I mean, we were playing with 2,000 or less at the high school, and Muskego's is about 1,000, 1,500. So
Yeah, that BMO is a pretty good idea, actually.
it's just an idea.
Yeah.
How much money is the difference between going in January and July? That's one question. And the other one is, July is the school year, January is the middle of the school year, so how much do we want to push because of something, do it fast and not have it done, that's just,
From the cost perspective of evaluating, January 1st to 7/1, we don't know yet, honestly, what those numbers and what that difference is. It's more looking at January, if there's an opportunity to provide savings and that ability to move to a self-insured plan is that it would line up, like with the calendar year, but like you said, it is during the middle of the school year, but we don't have a, cost comparison of making that move in January versus July. By that October, early November timeframe is when we would have, more of those firm costs then for that January 1st.
when do we have to say that we're going to move it? Can we wait till November to say?
No, the only way that this concept truly works is if we have free primary care that's independent of a traditional healthcare provider. So we would need to have a clinic in place. If we to just go self-insured to say everybody go wherever you want, business as usual, we'll just underwrite our own risk. I think is short-sighted and not worth it then at that point. I think you put a mechanism in place that can intercept as much expensive costs, unnecessary expensive costs, and the way to do that is through the clinic. To just go self-insured with no other changes, people are still going to go to the same doctors, get the same referrals at the same high-cost places.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You said you won't know till November what the difference in cost is. So we won't know until November whether going in January is gonna cost us a bundle or if it's not.
So I would say then that we ultimately, if we're sold on this concept, we build the clinic, and then the question becomes, well, when do we open this? Whether we have it built over the next 6 months or the last 6 months of the calendar year, and then it's ready to go January 1st, or maybe ready July 1st. If we're convinced this is the route, then we just need the permission to build it, and then we just say, what is the time that we let this thing open up? It's really January 1st or July 1st.
I think we should, several staff members reached out to me and they're really concerned about changing in the middle of the school year.
Sure.
So I think we should take that in consideration too. And I
Sure.
think that's a good point by Vito of kind of put feelers out there.
You know, the majority of private employers are going to have a calendar year deductible, and you know, maybe this is our opportunity to say we are now going to jump on, you know, from a January 1st to December 31st plan year. That coincides with most people in the private sector. I mean, there's not too many that, but there are some that do it the way we do it with July 1 to June 30. So, yeah, we can look at that. I guess at this time, these are the ideas. We were confident in Plan A or Plan B. We're going to let whatever the facts are, they're going to be what they are, and we're going to follow them and make the best decision based on what we know. So,
How many doctors will we have? Are they independent contractors? Are they employees of MASD?
no, they would not be employees of the MASD. There would be a clear division between us and the primary care. The primary care, there's 3 entities that we've interviewed. They don't have HIPAA laws would be maintained to the fullest.
Okay.
I could never walk in there and say, hey, what procedure was McNulty getting done?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's something that is I understand people's concern that would never be violated ever.
Okay. But there are people that we would interview
Yep.
because if they are weird and awkward, we don't want them because our staff doesn't want to go
Yep.
to awkward doctors.
You know, I would, if you know somebody who, if you know somebody who works in the Muskego Norway School District, ask them about their experience and just see where it's at. Let that conversation play out. Ask a couple people if you happen to know them. You know, Menasha is one of the success stories. They're going through this right now and having great success with it. So.
And how many doctors will we have on staff? Because we can't just have one.
So we looked at a couple of different models here, and some that would of the 3 that we looked at, the clinic for 2 of the 3 providers would be open 30 hours a week and staffed with a physician's assistant, maybe also supported by a nurse practitioner or medical assistant. One of the models that we looked at would have 40 hours a week of access. Obviously, it would cost more money. There will be a medical doctor rotating through 1 day a week, but there would still be alternatives. So, like if the physician's assistant that is working at Mukwonago High School cannot give you the medical opinion you're seeking, there would be other options. There would be a network that you could fall back on that looks just like the network that we have today. And then there could also be some some virtual options as well, where you could connect with a full MD or whatever that specialist is, in the event that your needs couldn't be met by the physician's assistant or nurse practitioner.
What have you seen as far as consistency of the same people in that clinic, like the doctors or physicians?
As far as retention?
Yeah,
of staff?
retention and the same people staff in the place.
It's typically very high once, like you mentioned, interviewing those providers. So one of the large appeals, for providers to come, such as a physician's assistant or nurse practitioner, to work in the independent clinics is they're not working evenings charting and having the long hours that typically they have to face in the hospital-based system. So they're often very excited when there is that opportunity to work in a community independent clinic. So I would also add, if you know of any nurse practitioners, physician's assistants in the area that might be a potential good fit, often, recruiting someone who's familiar with the community and might be looking for an alternative is, really an ideal option to have that candidate interview for the position. But they're very happy in those roles because of the work-life balance, quite frankly, and being able to practice healthcare and have that time with their patients versus, that typical appointment that's 10 minutes or less that they see in a day.
They've had good longevity next door, or good retention next door with their medical provider in Muskego.
Well, and I would add to all of the groups that Sarah and I have worked with have never moved away from the clinic model once they implemented and put in a clinic or the self-funded plan. So we've had, tremendous member satisfaction and the results with looking into, the Plan A option alternative.
Do we need a motion on this?
No, this is really just an update. The decision to go back to Anthem there was no really other option. We had to, and we had to ultimately communicate with our employees, here's what we're doing. So we moved forward because we had to. So we're just giving you an update here. Rarely do we just take action on our own without your blessing, but this was an odd one.
Yeah.
It sounds like, though, we're to the point where we need to make that motion to make that decision if we're going to go
Yep.
self-insured,
So
especially if we want a clinic by January.
sure. Yeah, I think that's something that ultimately in July's board meeting we'll be looking for your permission to take action here. This was pretty sudden, so today's an update. We'll come ask for permission next month. Can we build a clinic? Now there might be some comments from Steve or some thoughts that are similar to what Steve's having, that maybe we ought to consider that before we just up and move in this direction. But at a minimum, I think the Mukwonago High School option's a very good option. May not be loved by everyone, but I think it can work for most. And maybe over time, if we do this right, that folks will grow comfortable, or maybe we'll grow onto the virtual option at a minimum. I think it's still doable nonetheless.
And I think, as Vito said, I think that survey would probably be a pretty good idea.
Is anybody else's clinic not in their district or not on site?
Menashe's is near site, not on site.
Do they have do we know if they have a higher level of participation than the ones with on site?
We can find that out.
That'd be interesting.
Compare that. And keep in mind, too, the on-site clinic that we're talking about here, there is a separate entrance. So there isn't, somebody coming down a main hallway, for example, and just walking in. So the idea is to have a separate entrance that you...
Walking down the hallway, itching and scratching. The thing.
So yeah, I mean, we can bring back the plans that we've had drawn up by Bray. So I mean, if folks could enter through the main entrance and wiggle back, or they could come through the side door, both inconspicuous. It'd be no different than if you went to the Aurora Clinic here and we're in the waiting room there, or at the Pro Health Clinic. You can run into anybody at those, so it's not too much different. Okay. Is there any other questions for Megan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Head into budget update.
Yeah, so I'll give a budget update here to the room. So this is I'm going to go with the current budget and next year's budget here. So in both regards, I have good news on both here. So I'm just bringing this up on the screen here. All right, so I'm sorry, give me a second. All right, budget updates. There we go. All right. So talking about the current budget year that we're in, the 21-22 school year, we're going to have a really good fiscal year here now. There's two reasons for it. One is our revenues came in much higher than we thought that they were going to. For what we forecasted, we're going to bring in an additional $1.2 million more in revenue than we thought. The vast majority, so I kind of laid out some of the bigger ones here. Athletic ticket sales, we thought we were going to bring in 70,000, and it was weird. We're coming out of COVID year where we couldn't have fans or limited fans. We brought in $119,000 in ticket sales, so that was almost 50,000 more than we thought. Musical ticket sales, the musical did great. We thought that there would be 25,000 in sales. There was 58,000, so 33,000 more dollars in ticket sales. We, the district, don't keep that. We put that back in the student activity accounts for the musical programs. So we don't take that and go do other things with it. Gifts and donations, student fees. Student fees was 50,000 higher than we thought. The big one here is that we received $627,000 from the governor. He had some type of a source of federal funds that was his discretion to disseminate, and however he did that is how we did that. But we got $627,000 that we did not know was going to come our way when the school year came, so there's no way to see that coming. But Medicaid, we provide a number of Medicaid-based services to kids who qualify for Medicaid. So if it's, changing out G-tubes or other medical services, when we provide services that are Medicaid eligible, we can bill for those. Prior to Christine Bowden, I don't think we did a very good job of that. Under Christine's staff, we've done a hell of a job on that. So we thought we'd get 40,000 Medicaid reimbursements or funding. We got 113,000 so far. So altogether, we brought in another $1.2 million more than we thought, which is obviously awesome news. The second part of the equation then, as we take a look at how is this current fiscal year coming along, is that we are coming under budget for our expenditures. So unfortunately, some of that is due to the fact that we have a number of hourly support staff positions that are available that just simply go unfilled, or once you fill one, you lose another. And when you do the aggregate of all those positions not going filled, is that there's several $100,000 of savings here. But currently what I'm saying right now is that we are in a position that we're going to have a surplus from the current budget year in the range of $1.8 to $2.4 million. So we have options not there with that. So at the bottom, I have some bullet points, and I'm just going to make those a little bit bigger here. All right, so in the month of July, there's a few year-end decisions I'll ask the school board to consider for uses of our surplus funds, and I'm looking for your feedback right now as to what you think we ought to do here. So there's 2 year-end transfers that we can basically, if we have an expense coming next year, we can take our surplus funds now and move them into either Fund 73 or Fund 46. So to reiterate, Fund 73 is our post-employment benefit fund. We provide retirement benefits for some of our employees, mainly our teachers. And then as each year of service that our teaching staff accumulates, we have to contribute more to their post-employment benefit fund. So typically that's a $500,000 or $600,000 annual expense. We have some extra funds left over that we could put that money towards what next year's contribution would be to basically make next year in a better position by pre-funding that expense now to make next year a little bit easier. Likewise,
how well funded is that right now?
Almost 100%. 93% was the last time we had an analysis done, so we're better than most districts. We're better than most private employers. We're in a great spot. Most people would.
We got a better accountant.
We do. Linda Scafidi does a good job for us. She's a great accountant. Shout out to Linda. She watches these meetings sometimes. I ask her why, but she does. All right, so then we could also transfer money to Fund 46 for our capital expansion fund. So anytime that there's money left in the budget, we can move it to Fund 46, and then it's there for future building projects. We just did this twice at Eagleville. First time to build the outdoor pavilion, which is ultimately a building add-on, more or less, and then also with the trailer. So we have set money aside a number of times, and now we're starting to use those funds in a number of ways. So if there's no good ideas at the moment, There will always be a new roof that's needed. There will always be a new boiler or a new mechanical element of the building. We just, there's a lot of stuff that we just talked about here tonight that we could dedicate towards renovating spaces to add on 4K in some of our buildings. So the money will always be put to excellent use if we were to transfer it to Fund 46 for a cause yet to be determined. Stipend payments to staff. That's an option that we could talk about here with year-end surplus. If that's something you're interested in, I'd like to kind of hear your feedback, and then we can go and cost some things out and plan for that if that's your wish. We could set aside funds to build out the health clinic at Mukwonago High School. With the plans that we have drawn right now, the full build-out is about $900,000. But we would not commit to the full build-out. We would commit to a partial build-out, ensure that the model is successful, that the clinic's being utilized, and then if the demand was so great, we could build additional spaces. So we could do a preliminary build-out, is what we call as a phase 1 build-out, and that would be about $500,000 to $600,000. So we could also dedicate some of our surplus funds to that cause. And then finally, we could just add the surplus to fund balance. That's an option as well.
So
Your thoughts?
I mean, I like all the ideas. I'm not sure how far we can stretch 2 million. It sounds like the, clinics, what, $500,000?
Sure. Yep.
I have no idea what that stipend would add up to. I mean, obviously there'd be options, but I don't know what ballpark we'd be in for that.
So I think last year we did $500 stipends for teachers and $250 stipends for support staff. And that total all-in cost was $300,000.
What was the raise that the teachers received last year? Like this year, we're talking 4.7. What was that last year?
Oh, man, that's a good question, Carolyn.
Because I kind of want to wait. I don't know if we'd make a motion or just push this forward to the full board, but until we have the closed session. to see-
Yeah, I could go back and look and then come back and talk about that. Yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head.
I like the idea of setting aside enough money to fully pay for that healthcare thing, because it's something that we're
Yep.
talking about doing, we want to do, so you might as well just set that money aside right away, put that away for that. The next one was the stipend payments. I remember when we did that. I mean, it's one thing to give them a raise, but a lot of people, I got a lot of emails like saying thanks for that, and that was really cool. So
Good.
we
That's
can't-
awesome.
the one thing I like about that is if we can get it across to people like, hey, this is saved money. So it puts it in their head, at least this is how we do it, it puts it in their head like, you save money, we make it worth it for you. So whether it's $500 or if we can do 1,000 or whatever we can do to say, hey, thank you for understanding and being frugal and picking up the slack. We know we don't have everybody we need, and it adds that extra burden. Here's something for you for that, and then whenever you do it, if we can, we're gonna send it out your way if we can. I think those two are my
Okay.
top two, especially if we're fully funded in 70, or we're almost fully. We're better than most in 73.
Yep.
Like, all right, that seems negligible. Expansion funds, if I remember right, that's still got like $5 million in it, doesn't it?
Collectively, there's $3 million in Fund 46, and there's $3 or $4 million in Fund 41. They're essentially for the exact same purposes. So I think there's more like $6 or $7 million.
We're already rocking some good coin in those things.
So I would say the last couple of years in Fund 41, we've spent more than we've levied in. So again, Fund 41 is you get your $10,000, and at the beginning of the year, you proactively put some money aside. Fund 46 is you're saying at the end of the year, of that $10,000, how much do we have left? So it's just, one is the front end, one is the back end. Serves the same purpose for maintaining buildings, expanding buildings. We've spent, we put $800,000 into Fund 41. The last couple of years, we've spent more than that. So some years we put more in, some years we take more out. It's based on what are the immediate needs right now. Right now, the immediate need is the parking lot at Rolling Hills, the trailer at Eagleville that we decided to purchase. So if we made a decision, we're not looking to add anything to fund balance, then we could we could just say whatever's left, we put in a Fund 46. There will be a building cost at some point that will absorb that. So,
You're gonna look into seeing what the stipend thing is and let us know?
sure. Do you guys want to give me some range of values as to what you want me to price out? Do you want me to look at the same 500 for teaching staff?
2 to 3 times that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
Please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we did 1,000 for teachers and 500 for support staff.
Does it multiply? That's it, like, could you just expect if it's gonna be 500, it's gonna be this?
Yeah,
How's it
it'll
calculated?
basically just, yeah,
These are-
1,500, you
So it'd be
triple it
600,000 then if we doubled it.
out of
Okay.
potentially 2.4 million.
So what I'll do then in January is I'll bring these final costs back to tell you exactly where it's at then, and we'll take action at that time.
In January?
Oh, excuse me, July.
Oh,
I got too many J's in my
more
head.
teachers have to wait till then?
Long analysis.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Our fund balance, what is it? Our fund balance, Cherry? Our fund balance is we are at, hold on. Got it up on the screen here. Next page. So I'm bringing this budget forecast up here. So, Cherry, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to take this opportunity to change gears here. We're going to talk about the current year budget and next year's budget. So the current year budget, this is a snapshot. So we have last school year, the current school year, the upcoming 22-23 school year, and then we have a couple of forecasted years here. So with the best information I can have at this time, I'm showing that there's $2.3 million of a surplus. Our fund balance would be at 35.7%. So that's a snapshot as of June 30th of what your cash position is as a percent of your overall expenses. So in other words, if we never received another dollar from another source of revenue, federal government, state government, local taxpayers, if it all went away, we could survive 35.7% of the school year. So we could get through about 3 or 4 months of school, and then we'd be out of money. But that basically is more or less just a metric to say, hey, as of this point in time, what's your fund balance percentage here? So that's in line with most Waukesha County school districts right there. You don't want to have too much fund balance because then you're taking money that you don't ultimately have an identified purpose for, and you shouldn't really be in the business of that as a school district. If you need it, there it is, but if you don't need it, don't take it. But you also want to make sure that you have enough that you can absorb costs of whatever, a disaster of sorts, a tornado happens, a roof needs to get replaced, whatever it is, a chiller, a boiler, whatever might happen, then you have that money set aside there for the purposes of doing whatever you need it for, okay? So we're in a good spot right there, so that we have our revenues for the school year, our expenditures for the school year. There's our surplus position. Our fund balance position here is $20.5 million. That's 35.7% of our overall expenditures for the school year. As we look ahead to this tax levy, we had this past fall was a 0.2% decrease here, and you can see that's our theme each year going forward, is that we are going to continuously drop the tax levy while prepaying debt at the same time. Our mill rate was $7.57, so that's the rate of taxation per $1,000 of a house's value. As we take a look and we go ahead into next year, okay, as we move forward, we're projecting a 25 student growth. That's ultimately the average of what we heard from MD Roffers, that we're gonna be plus 350 students by 2035. So to assume you're going to go up by 25 kids isn't unrealistic here. We're getting no new dollars. That $10,000 in funding per student is going to grow by 0. We get $742 of per pupil categorical aid. So again, the $10,000 in funding is shared between taxpayers and state government. The per pupil categorical aid is solely paid by state government, and every school district gets $742 per. Those two sources of revenue are the biggest sources of our revenue. That's 90% of all of our dollars. We have revenues, expenses. We have a $100,000 deficit. In my mind, that's totally manageable. I don't blink at that. If it was bigger than that, I'd have a concern here. What I would say is, if we have a $100,000 hole in the budget, let's take at least $100,000 from this year's savings, put it towards next year's Fund 73 expense, and then that deficit is gone. Now we have a break-even budget, and we all feel better about that. So again, our tax levy is going to drop by another 0.2%. Our mill rate is going to fall to 726. Property values are coming up, and the amount of taxes we're asking for is going down. So
we can't really hold that mill rate up, can we?
no, I think at this point, what I would recommend we do here is that going back to last school year, this is the amount we levied. We're going to shrink that each and every year and let the mill rate fall wherever it is. And so long as we ask for less money, then your property tax bill should show up smaller.
Which I do like, but during the previous meeting, as we're looking at that long term, we drop, and then we go to referendum and say now, if we make some decision to go to, $125 million referendum.
Yep.
Oh, nope. Now we got to jump up by a chunk. Whereas if we weren't dropping it, it allows us to do.
Sure.
So that's my only thought. It's like, based on those other graphs, it's like, well, if we keep dropping, and when we do go to referendum, it's going to be more painful. It's going to look like it's a bigger gap.
Sure. I'd say if you want to, so your mill rate here is going to go up or down for two reasons, and there's only two reasons. If property values go up, then the mill rate goes down. If there's more houses that are being built and there's more taxpayers that are joining the party, then the more hands on deck there are, there's more people that are able to pay this amount of money that we're looking for. So therefore, everybody's taxes go down. So if property values come up, the mill rate goes down. If our tax levy, the ultimate amount we're asking for, goes down, then in theory, that contributes towards the mill rate going down. So right now, property values are still going up. They're still strong. That might cool off in the future, but as of right now, there's still going to be an increase in property value, and the mill rate will come down because of that. It will also go down further because we're asking for less money.
And I mean, because it's set because it's the $10,000, right? Plus those other adders, but that's what sets the mill rate, right?
Yep.
We can only levy for.
The mill rate is going to ultimately depend on that $10,000. The formula, how many kids do you have? How much is the state contributing towards that amount? If they contribute less, the tax levy goes up. If the state contributes a lot more, the tax levy comes down. So.
Do you take the TIF districts into account for this?
Yeah, but none of them are coming offline. We checked in with the Village of Mukwonago. The next TIF district that's going to be closed is going to be TIF 3, which is Wolf Run. And I don't know, I forget which year it's supposed to close, but they're going to seek to keep that open for another 2 or 3 years so the Village of Mukwonago can continue to pay themselves back for that cost of that project. So that TIF still might be in effect longer, meaning that the taxes that Home Depot and Walmart pay will not join. They're not going to be, their tax dollars are going to be kept by the Village of Mukwonago rather than the school district getting some and the Waukesha County Tech College getting some and the other entities that would have taxation authority to receive that money. So they might keep that TIF open longer. The others are going to be open for a long time. Like TIF 5 is on Highway 83 as you're leaving town, and that just started. That's still got at least 15 years to finish. So there's no news on that front, in other words, Vito.
Roger.
So I guess, again, the point of my budget right now, if the current year is going well, next year looks good, I would be looking for your advice. If we had a big deficit and you weren't comfortable with it, well, how do we close it? And that's when tough decisions occur. We don't need to make that right now. More or less, we're going to take our year-end surplus, figure out what do we do with this right now to position next year even better, and then make some other choices like stipends or whatever that might be. That's the budget update there. So do you guys have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Would it make sense to take some of that money for the healthcare clinic?
Yeah,
Like because of the speed of it, that we need to get it done?
Part of me thinks that health savings or not, it's a solid and worthy investment into your people. I do think that it will have a positive impact on your on your claims. Again, you get a $300 doctor's visit here or there that you're getting for, $100 locally in your own building with your own provider. That's just as good, no more, no less. I think that's a good investment for people. So when Muskego did their concept, it wasn't about solely, here's how much we could save. It was, let's invest in the employees and let's see where this thing goes. And sure enough, it worked for employee morale. It worked to keep costs down. It worked in every capacity that it could have worked. So I do think it would make sense for us for this year's surplus to take $600,000, put it in Fund 46, and dedicate those funds towards the build out of the clinic. We don't have to carve that out of the existing budget. We can take budget savings and put it to work. So,
Okay, Lily and Rose.
okay. Next thing then is that we have a lease with the Lily and Rose building, which is just southeast of where we're sitting right now in the industrial park off of Highway ES. We've been there now for 5 years. I want to say 4 years complete, and the 5th year is coming up here. We have a lease that ends at the end of July, so we're looking to renew that for August 1st, 2022 through July 30th of 2023. The lease is $2,200 a month, so it's $26,000 approximately for the full year. They haven't raised rates on us. We're looking for permission to keep signing that lease at this point here. When we initially looked for spaces, it's tougher than you think. We looked at some buildings where what we do as a K-12 institution, as a public institution for zoning purposes, you think we'd fit in most anywhere, but we don't. I argued, and Andy and I argued when we looked around town, where can we fit this? We found some businesses. If you guys know where Dragonfly Embroidery is, it's on the other side of what's that, Solda Mexico restaurant. We were going to have difficulties getting in there. I argued that we would be no different than what you'd think of like a tutoring center, a private tutoring center. But they regarded us as different and said you can't be in this facility. So we were limited in that.
What is it?
What's that? So the lease is for SOAR. SOAR is our programming for kids who need a different spot to go. So we landed on this place. They've been good partners to us. The space works. I guess I can't.
So you need a motion.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion that we take this to the full board to approve the Lily and Rose lease.
Discussion, or do we need?
I think I need a second.
I'm not going to second it because I don't. Well, I'll second it, but then I want to discuss it.
Any discussion?
Yes. All right. So with commercial property, lease values have plummeted since COVID because everybody's working from home. So there's all these commercial places available now. The average commercial lease space in Mukwonago is $12.10 per square foot. I don't know what the exact square footage or what we'd be paying per square foot for this place, but that would mean we'd be paying $1,900 per month if we did at $12.10 per square foot. So my thought is maybe we amend the motion to go back and negotiate. I know they haven't raised rates on us, and they haven't because they're getting a good deal from us right now because everything is available. I know we have constraints with where we can go, but there's so many places available, they're not going to fill the space. It'll just sit there vacant. So if we go back.
Yeah, I would.
We can only, their zoning there was one of the only few places we could put an actual learning facility.
Yeah,
Right.
We need to make.
That are business related, we can't go in.
We need to make sure we have another option before we go
I do fear that we wouldn't have an option come August 1st.
But if we also negotiate a 5-year contract, because we're not going to have a building to move SOAR into within 5 years anyway, so we'll sign a 5-year contract at $12.10 per square foot.
So,
A 5-year lease, I should say.
so you want me to go approach Lily and Rose about that?
It'd be a $15,000 savings over the course of 5 years.
Okay. Let me make sure I just get this all down here.
It's gen, yeah. So this is where I look for properties on, hold on, let me put back up now. So it's just the general, it's called, Real LA dots, and it's a long thing. I can just email it out to the group. But it's rental units and shops for lease in Mukwonago. So it's just general commercial property. So the cheapest is $7 a square foot. The most expensive is $19 a square foot.
And how many square foot are we at SOAR?
1,900 is what the lease says.
Is it?
Do we know what the cost of moving would be?
Oh, you looked it up? Or is
Yeah.
it on here?
It's on
Yeah,
here.
Oh,
there's,
there it is. I didn't scroll down.
we need to set up phones and data for computer, internet. There's some technology-based fixed costs that we would have to incur.
So I just think it would be a benefit to both of us, though, or like them and us. If we can commit to 5 years, they're not going to lease that space out to anybody else with how many spaces are available. And so they're not losing us, and we're not losing a space, but we're getting a deal. We're not. I don't think we're going to have anything built. I mean, if we're going to move SOAR, where?
I remember being part of the search process, and there just weren't options
Right.
for us that fit our zoning. So it's not like we can really play too much hardball.
Yeah.
Unless we do this, that we have to have something as a backup, before we go do that, because I don't know that we can't just go
Right.
straight up commercial.
Right.
We have to have zoning.
Well, they can.
I don't know that we have other options.
Well, they can say no, and we can just sign a 1-year lease and pay more.
We had investigated Bayview Road. There was a number of, across from David Allen Allen's, there's like a small medical facility. I think there's like oral surgeons in there.
My goal is not to uproot the program or to move locations. My goal is just to
Yeah.
we sign a 5-year. I don't foresee us trying to move it in 5 years from the conversation that we just had. That yeah. So we can ask them, and if they say no, then fine. We sign a 1-year lease at a more expensive rate. But I feel like they would want a 5-year commitment would be a benefit to them. And
So, Carolyn, can you say that again? The 5-year lease, and what were the terms that you stated there? Then that our offer would be 5 years at
1,900.
1,900.
$1,900 a month.
Yep.
And if they say no to that,
Then we sign a 1-year lease and we pay more still. But it's worth asking. I don't. But yeah.
So we've got a motion. We had discussion. Do we need to vote? Or how do we?
She could ask to amend your motion, you would have to agree to amend it, or you vote on the current one on the floor, and if it fails, you can then reapproach the amendment.
So would you like to amend it?
Can I amend your motion?
The question is,
So-
are you willing to
Yeah.
amend your motion?
Right. So I didn't know if she needed to ask to say, "Hey, I want to amend it," and that's what you did. So
If you're not willing, then the conversation's over and
Yeah.
you have to vote. So it's really in your court.
no, I'm willing. I think that if we can get a savings anywhere, we can, and if property values are, a little bit more challenging, maybe like you say, with a multi-year agreement, maybe they.
okay.
So I'd like to. Sorry, what is-
Before
now I-
it's worth 5. So 5 years is that? Do we need this for 5 years?
we could do 3 years too. I'm just throwing out. I'm just trying to give them more of a commitment.
I think 3 years is probably a better bet, just because we're definitely. I mean, we might get something built in 5 years.
Yeah.
With the other way, we're not going to get anything built in 3 years.
My only worry is
And if we
after the
do-
3-year contract, do we have, now we're committed to 3 years, do we have to send another 3-year contract to hold that rate? So I was thinking 5.
I think if we're probably going to build something, and if we take a hit on 1 year, we take a hit on 1 year. I think I agree with you. I think it's stupid not to ask in today's climate with commercial property the way it is. I mean, hopefully we don't offend them.
Yeah.
But we don't know their situation. They might love that extra money and be like, 19's good enough, whatever. At least we got somebody in the building.
It's,
And if not, cool. We'll just do this. And we're
I mean,
good.
I like the thought of 3 years too, but
I would be on board with 3.
3? Okay. So I'd like to amend the motion by saying we talked to Lily and Rose, try to do $1,900 a month and commit to a 3-year contract.
Okay.
And if they agree, that immediately pushes forward and you guys sign the lease. You don't need to come back to us. And if it
For a
doesn't,
1 year.
and either way, if they don't
Well,
agree and they want to do the 1-year lease,
still have to take it to the full board, right?
Yeah, this is your recommendation at this point to the board.
then
and the
we'd
board would
automatically go to the full board. You don't have to come back to finance.
Okay.
Either
Okay.
way, with whatever they agree to. But I think it's a win for both parties.
What's that? Okay, I accept your amendment.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
First Amendment in 6 years that I've been here. Nice job, guys. I liked it.
All right. 4K rates.
All right, so every year we have to negotiate rates. This is the rate of money that we pay to our 4K community partners for their efforts in educating our 4K students. Here, I'll bring this up here. So, all right, here we go. So annually we revisit this amount. We've had a 4K community partner program since 2015-16. That was our first year. At that time, we reimbursed our providers $2,500 per student, and then we've upped that amount here since then. So right now, we are reimbursing them $2,800 for each student that they take of ours. So I would say that no different than any business, our own included, when you have hourly employees or teachers of any sort, that the cost of retaining those people is going up. Salaries are up. There's a labor market that people have options when you work in education to go work somewhere else for more money. So we should do our part, in my opinion, to increase our commitment to our community partners. So I recommend that we increase this amount by at least $25, so that we would increase that to $2,825 per 4K student. I mean, if we do that, we're increasing our overall cost by $3,500 in the grand scheme of a $58 million budget. This is a very, very, very small percentage. So that being said, then I would also encourage you to at least consider increasing that amount by $50 per student. I think that additional increase would be welcomed by our community partners as they look to stabilize their 4K teacher situation, whatever it might be. So we're looking obviously for a recommendation from the committee here for the board, and then action would take place in next week, Monday.
Make a motion, we increase the payment by $50.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So much easier.
Sorry. Just really passionate about that last one.
In the last couple of years, we've seen these programs not necessarily fulfill what our was intended for the purpose of the 4K was to have the 4K kids more ready for kindergarten, and with the staff changes and the inability for them to get quality staff, the programs just haven't been. So I understand what you're saying. However, like we did with the bus company, I think there should be something attached to the money that we are giving them, that they need to increase the salaries of their employees rather than just put it into their pot to do with what they want. Because even some of
Can we
the
dictate that?
comments that have been given to people who have utilized the program I'm not saying all of them, I'm not saying any particular one, but to just keep throwing money at it and they get to hire and they get to pay, and if that, we don't know that they're giving that money to their people, they could be doing, who knows what they could do with it. So
Can we
I think
dictate
there's
that?
gonna be some attachment to that, with that increase, that's where the money had to go.
Can we already amend it since it's been voted on?
Well, the school board hasn't.
No, but here's the deal, she's not on this committee, so
Right.
I'm just giving my, she can say all of that at the full board level.
Right.
Right, you're only recommending it, that's no decision, so she can share all of that.
Erica, could you speak into your microphone? I just gave you your own dose of medicine.
I didn't either, because I'm not on the committee.
Okay.
Us committee members should not be, on the microphone.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's good input, Sherry.
Just for all the viewers at home. Just want to make sure they can hear you, Erica. That's all. Okay. Well, I mean, that's something that this can be discussed at the school board meeting next Monday night.
Hey, we can amend it there, right?
Sure.
We can change that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that gets it over there, and then she can
I
do
mean,
what she wants.
You could
That's fair.
ultimately say we're willing to make this increase if and only if you can give us an assurance of sorts that this will find its way into the pockets of the employees that you're trying to hire. Because ultimately, we're here to get quality teachers, which we need to rely on them for. We're not doing this as a move to give them more profit into their profit and loss statement.
Because that was Stephanie's point too, right? It was the turnover that
Mm-hmm.
is a challenge.
So we're aware of that turnover.
Can we talk to them and to find out what it actually takes? Because I mean, I look at it and it's like $50 a kid, $3,500. This isn't a lot of money.
Right.
So can you talk to them and find out, going under her thing, what she said, what would it take? Is it $100? Is it $150? What do they think that is absolutely going to get transferred over to their employees, the people they hire? What does that take to get and keep the people so that we can have this doing what we intended it to do? And if it's $50, then cool. If it's $100, if that's what's needed, as long as we got the money, now we're actually getting the result we want.
Okay.
As long as it's going to the
Sure. I'll check in and you'll hear about what I find on Monday. All right.
We need executive session. So who roll calls?
Make a motion that we go into executive session.
second,
Second.
third.